Hi everyone and welcome to another video. I'm Nohan and today I wanted to talk to you about 3 classics that I've read recently and that I have mixed feelings about, in the sense that it was a mixed batch. There is one that I loved, that is an absolute favorite. I'm going to talk about that one last. There is one that, although I hadn't read it yet, was just a lot of nostalgia. And there was one that just did not work for me. We're going to start with that one. I'm in the front of my new bookcases. Well, the new setup. These bookcases aren't new. And you're gonna see a video on Friday where I'll just show you the new setup a little bit. I kind of was hesitating to do them both in this video, but then I figured, no, let's just split the two. So you got that to look out for Friday. Now let's just talk about those 3 classics. This is going to be a shorter video. Now let's start with the book that is surrounded with all the nostalgia. So that is one that I haven't read yet, but I've seen the movie and loved the movie 1,000 times, and that is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. The movie is one of those movies that I go back to when I feel romantic and just want to see something that I just know very well and I just love. There was one time a couple of years ago that I felt like reading the book as well, but I'd just seen the movie and it didn't feel like I was discovering something new. And now, reading this version, which I'll talk about in a sec, I discovered that no, that book was probably just a movie version of the story, because this one, what I like discovering and reading Pride and Prejudice is that there is more depth to the book than the movie. I know, I was surprised as well. So I have this version, the, what is it, Macmillan Collector's Library. I also have Emma and Persuasion in these versions, Persuasion being my favorite. And I like this kind of old chic feel that they have to them, because this is Jane Austen. I wouldn't want other books in this version as well, but I like it for this. So let's talk about the story first, if you have no idea, haven't watched movies or anything. Pride and Prejudice is about the attraction, the passion that there is between Lizzie Bennet and Mr. Darcy. They are from different classes. She is could say middle class, I believe, I don't really know, and she has 4 sisters, and her mother is obsessed with marrying her and her sisters off. Her elder sister is also in a, gee, what do you call that? When a man, you're hoping that a man that you're seeing at some parties is going to ask you to marry him. She's being wooed? No, she's not even being wooed. Anyway, she's in that thing with another man, and he is friends with Mr. Darcy, and Elizabeth is also seeing how that evolves and is hoping that her sister will be married, etc., etc. At the same time, she hates Mr. Darcy. She thinks he's very prideful, she has a lot of prejudice about him, and he has the same with her. He has prejudices about her, and she's very prideful as well. And it is about how that evolves in Edwardian England. I love this because of the tension between Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, and I love that discovering in the book that you get Mr. Darcy's feeling as well, which is something you don't have in the movie. So that was a nice new discovery, and like I said, I just love the tension between these characters. If it had been written now, I would have found a lot of faults with it, but now reading it, it was just nice to see these characters again, but in a slightly different light, and hating Mr. Collins again, and hating Mrs. Bennet as well, and hating Lydia and stuff like that. So this was a very nice book to, I don't know, to read in a time where, with the move and everything, life was very busy. And so I was listening to something that I did know, but discovered some new stuff, which was great. Now let's talk about the book that did not work for me, and that, and the other circumstance here, probably would have DNF'd, and that is Mrs Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. Just like with Pride and Prejudice, I've read 2 other Virginia Woolf. One was Orlando, a fiction book that went miles over my head. Miles, kilometers, did not understand anything of that book. We read it with my book club, and still, after having talked about it, like, nope, nope. I did, however, love A Room of One's Own. That is a non-fiction kind of essay that she wrote, and I thought that one was brilliant. Absolutely loved it. So I was curious with Miss Dalloway which side I was going to fall on this time, and hoping also that See, with Orlando, I read that one years ago, and I hope that now Miss Dalloway would appreciate it more, because as a reader, I've matured more. Haven't matured enough, apparently. So Miss Dalloway is set a couple of years after the First World War, and it's stream of consciousness. And we read about a couple of characters, the primary one being Miss Dalloway herself, through her whatever she does during a day. She's preparing for a feast, a party that she's organizing. And we read also about a soldier who, after the war, has PTSD and is suffering with all of that, and with what his wife feels about him being a totally different man. And then there is an old lover, an old interest of Virginia Woolf, who's came back from India. It's a stream of consciousness. Stream of consciousness does not work for me. There is, every time that I read a book and after a while I realize, oh, I know why I don't like it. It's because it's stream of consciousness. It just, and I've realized now with Virginia Woolf why that is, and I think it is because though the way it's written, it resembles my own thoughts too much. It's just, you know, like a boat just floating on waves and not really going somewhere. That's my own thoughts. So when I listen to a read stream of consciousness, I don't get pulled in, or, well, I don't get pulled out of my own thoughts, and I don't get put somewhere else. So I struggled a lot with this one. There were a lot of sections, I read it on audio, and there were a lot of sections that I just had to listen to again because I'd floated off again. The first part, I had started listening before going to sleep, and I fell asleep. So the second day I tried again, I fell asleep again, so I had to listen to it a third time. That's when I really just sat down with the book and tried to get through it. So I just didn't appreciate the book. I do see the themes that there are in it. There are characters that really don't know where their places in the world. There's a lot of stuff to do with memories and with relationships with other people. But honestly, in 2 weeks, 2 months, I'll probably have forgotten it, except for this feeling that, no, Virginia Woolf is not yet for me. And I still have this hope that in a couple of months, no, maybe a couple of years, when I go back to it, when I try another one, maybe I should go for the waves or something. Maybe that one will then at one point be something for me, but for now, stream of consciousness, Virginia Woolf, well, Virginia Woolf's fiction, I'm going to stay clear of it because I can't appreciate it. Luckily for me, the third book is one that I absolutely loved. It's a modern classic, and I was afraid to pick it up. I don't really know why. I thought it was going to go a little bit over my head, and it's an American classic, and I have weird relationships with those as well. They don't always work for me. This one is The Color Purple by Alice Walker. I'm going to have to find another copy because this one is a bit battered. I found it in a free library, and see, this kind of falls off. And I think the cover could be so much better. This is really one of those mass media paperback, and gonna have to find my own copy. It's great. It's great. It's great. It's great. It's written mostly from the point of view of Celie, who is a young woman living in the South of America, and she writes letter to her sister. When she is young, she is beaten and raped by her father. She even has children by him who are then taken away from her. And there is a man that is interested in her sister. She knows her sister is then going to have the same fate as she's going to have, so she decides that she's going to marry that man. Her sister, Nettie, I believe is her name, kind of wants to go with her, wants to go with Celie, but then Celie says, no, you have to go away. And she flees the whole situation, and it takes a while before we learn about her again. But Celie does continue. When she prays, she kind of talks to Nettie. Kind of. So she talks to God, or she talks to Nettie about her life. And that is how we learn about everything that happens to her. So the man that she goes to live with, who is her husband, as she thought, is a violent man who hits her whenever he feels like it. And she also has to take care of his children. So we kind of see that life. And at the same time, that man, who remains unnamed for most of the book, because she doesn't want to give him that power, is what I believed. He also has a lover who's called Miss Shooky. I can't really remember, but she's this flamboyant person, and Celie finds that she's very attracted to her. She's always looking at her, and at one point that woman falls ill, and it's Celie who starts to take care of her, and they form a bond, and by that bond Celie starts to grow, and you see her slowly but surely finding strength in herself in a wonderful, wonderful way. And at one point also she discovers what happens to her sister through letters that her sister has been sending. And her sister joined a group of Catholic missionaries, and they go to Africa, to Liberia, to spread the faith. And we hear about that, and Nettie also discovering more stuff about her family. It's a switch in the book, and that, I mean, you just follow Celie for 2/3, and then suddenly you hear about Nettie, and I was like, wait, what? But then before no time I was completely sucked into that story, and glad we learned about it. But I wasn't expecting it, so at the beginning I was a bit unsure about the turn it took, also because this is one of those books that every character really has its own voice, and when Nettie starts sending these letters, there's also a switch in timbre, in rhythm, in it's another person writing. So, and that's kind of really what you feel, and that helped the shock part. This is great. It's one of those classics that I think I don't appreciate it enough. So I think also that my thoughts aren't representative enough for the beauty that is in this, the levels of depth. I don't think I really see all those levels as much. They're great themes. It's a very violent book. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of hurt. There's you know, this fear of being alone. It's just good, is what I'm going to say. Please read this, because it's great. You're not going to be disappointed. It reads fast as well. It doesn't read like, you know, these are totally different classics. It's great, and I'm going to have to look into more of Alice Walker's books. Those were the 3 classics that I wanted to talk about with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts about any of these. They're different, very, very different. I'd love to hear, first of all, how you feel about Mrs Dalloway, if you've read that, and how you feel about stream of consciousness type of writing, because I know that the people that do love it, when they love it, they're so happy with it. I think this is Mrs Dalloway's book that if you love, you really, really love, whereas this one is a lot easier to love in a sense, for very different reasons. So I'd love to hear about you, from you, about you. Just tell me stuff. I'm gonna stop talking, and I'll see you in another video, which will be my little tour of what my bookcases look like right now. Bye.
Ba-chum, ba-chum, chum.